The uncertainty that swallowed up the nation on the eve of the military takeover had an ironic twist. People confusingly speculated some sort of coup was in the making. But the military was hardly the focus. The police force had become notoriously powerful from their brusque behavior during the 1979 rights demonstrations. Their morale, as it is called, was high, and they appeared unconquerable. Justice Minister Joseph Chesson was out on radio assuring President Tolbert that everything was under control and the president should sleep. The hesitant stance of the army in the protests painted them powerless and untrustworthy in the sight of the establishment. The public was understandably swayed by that portrayal, not realizing the refusal of the soldiers to stop the crowd on that day was more an act of solidarity with the rioters and not weakness. Besides, President Tolbert seemed to have galvanized his control over the armed forces by placing his aviator cousin, Lieutenant General Franklin Smith, as Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of Liberia. When the soldiers finally struck on the night of April 12, 1980, few could honestly claim they knew that the enlisted men could have actually tried and succeeded. The military surprised the public when the names of several Tolbert ministers were announced among the new officials, the cabinet. The new regime retained Tolbert's Public Works Minister Gabriel Tucker, Health Minister Kate Bryant, and Minister Lucini Donzo of the Action for Development and Progress, later renamed Ministry of Rural Development. The soldiers admired these officials, particularly Tucker, who they said was only concerned with national development and was not corrupt. The PRC government was organized shortly following the overthrow. My understanding is that on that night, the first choice for head of state was not Samuel Doe. I was told by PRC senior member, the late Abraham Colley, that when the soldiers overthrew the government, they had a small meeting on one of the floors of the executive mansion, even before they could go to release Barkers, Matthews, Oscar, Quia, Chair Chipo, and the rest, George Bowley. And they asked each other, so gentlemen, the mission is accomplished. What is it now that we're going to do? Somebody said, where is the vice president? Benny Warner. Then Abraham Colley said, he told me, he said, oh, we'll carry the man to Robert's Field. He's not in the country. Then Thomas Wesson said, after certain instances of argument, that well then, let us take it over. And I will serve as head of state because I'm supposed to be commissioned second lieutenant. Then Kuwangba said, you're supposed to be, but you have not been commissioned. So we have to look at the highest person here, which happened to have been Master Sergeant Samuel Doe. And Wesson said he would not accept that. Then they all agreed that, okay, we have to carry on because we don't know what the soldiers are doing outside there. And some of the politicians are still in jail. So for the moment, we will accept Samuel Doe as our acting head of state. So wherein was said to have reluctantly agreed. Before then, the dispatch Kuwamba, Larry Botti and others to free the inmates of the post stockade. Three individuals from jail got together to read a statement that was read by Samuel Doe, according to what Samuel Doe told me. Oscar Kuya, Bacchus Matthews, and Chiachiku. We all woke up that morning to the ruffling sound on the microphone between 4 and 5 with a voice. Play it. Play it. That was the anthem. And then Doe came on. We didn't know who was that. And he said President Tolbert had been overthrown for rampant corruption, and that a People's Redemption Council was now in control. Wow. We have seen the agitation, we have seen the instability, we have speculated maybe that something would go wrong, but now this was the reality. For me, I didn't really believe that this could have happened. But we felt that these soldiers, unknown soldiers, were doing the work of bigger officers. Until we heard the coup was in the coup from Samuel Doe saying, no non-commissioned officer should take orders from any commissioned officer. I think that was a real coup, because some of these generals and colonels have been carrying these little soldiers, using them as watchmen, cook, drivers, all kinds of things. And you can imagine what our announcement did. The general quickly became the corporal. They overthrew their big shots, military big shots. I was sitting at my house that morning. Didn't know what to make of the next step. I just saw this vehicle rushing in my yard. I almost collapsed. Because right in front of my yard, we had a little Volkswagen there from the Liberian news agency. But that was not the problem. It had written on it, Bentor. And those soldiers had just killed the president from Bentor. There was only one gate to get out of the yard. Then we tried to look for the key for the Volkswagen. They said the key was lost. What are we going to do with this big Bentor written on the Volkswagen? And then this vehicle was coming with soldiers pointing guns out of the window. That was Saturday afternoon. I was assistant minister then. The government had inherited me from the Tolbert government. I saw this master sergeant got down, jump out of the vehicle. 10 of them in that small vehicle rushed to me. I said, what happened? I locked the door behind me with my family in there. He said, you don't remember me? I said, you look familiar. He said, I'm Sergeant Ford. You forgotten? I was working at the Vice President's office when you were there, and I asked you to give me a letter of recommendation to the Chief of Staff to promote me. He said, you wrote that letter, and that's the rank I have today. I said, so what you came for? I want to know. He said, I'm going to carry you to the mansion. For what? He said, all your friends there. I said, who are my friends? Because I heard a big announcement on the radio that they were collecting people. So I called my minister, Johnny Martin. I said, Johnny? He said, yes. I said, where are you? He said, I'm still at the house. I said, but there's an announcement here that all ministers, and that ministers should go. He said that all of us. I said, no, I'm an assistant minister. Because I remember when I was assistant minister with Mr. McLean as a minister, he went to a cabinet meeting one day and returned and called a senior staff meeting. He said, at that meeting there was the late Honorable Bai T. Moore, Deputy Minister. I was there as Assistant Minister for Public Affairs, and other officials, other assistant ministers. He said, President Tolbert is angry. He said this stream of anonymous leaflets going around here, and we have said nothing about it at the Ministry of Information. No denial. These leaflets condemning the government, and we know it's from PPP or Moja. So Minister McLean said this is what we have to do, so we have to put a very strong press release together to condemn this leaflet. So Assistant Minister Kroma said, yes, sir. You need to put it together. I said, have you seen this leaflet before going to the mansion? He said, no. I said, if you as Minister of Information had not seen this leaflet, what is the possibility that thousands of people had not seen it? You cannot condemn this newsletter or leaflet on the radio without mentioning what the leaflet said, our President Tolbert. So this is a strategy by the authors of this leaflet to promote their message. Because at the moment, the government will be considered as a liar, and the authors will be considered as the underdog, because the government is losing integrity. So I do not believe that it will be useful. It will be contrapositive for us to put out a condemnation. Then he told me, okay, you know what? When you become minister, you can take that decision. I'm writing my condemnation. So on this morning, when they were calling for the ministers, and he said, well, all should go. I said, no, I'm an assistant minister. When I got to the mansion, I saw George Bowley, Minister of State for Presidential Affairs. He said, the President wants to see you. I said, from where? That's when we entered, we saw the senior members of the PRC. That's when he said, you remember me, Kroma? I said, no, sir. So I'm the one who freed you from that small jail behind the mansion there that night. I said, it had to be you, because how did you get to know I was the one? Then Wesson said, Kroma? I said, yes, sir. What you're doing, you're not ready enough out of the PRC. You have to our minister then. That's when I panicked. Because I look around me, it was a very interesting scene. I saw some empty stuffed cartoons in the corner. And everybody had on goggles, shades. I said, they just picked it up from my house. What do you want me to say? He said, you should understand the revolution. Then those say yes. And you don't want you to get commentary after the news? But we dare you. Bring some of that commentary to say something bad about us. So I was sent back to the Ministry of Information. And it was tough. Because all the PRC members wanted to be covered. And we just had 2 television cameras. And 10 people who called me and said, send me one team. It was difficult. So I said, well, the only 2 cameras we got are at the executive mansion. He said, oh, so you think with the President Doe overthrew the government?